Welcome to the Positive Change Methods podcast with me, Andy Smith. Each episode will bring you tips, practical change formats, and new perspectives to make your life and work better right now, drawn from Appreciative Inquiry and related approaches. This episode is brought to you by the Practical Appreciative Inquiry Facilitator Training. Let me show you how to get started using Appreciative Inquiry confidently with teams and small groups. The next live online course starts soon. You can find the details and how to book your place at coachingleaders.co.uk. All right, let's get going. Episode 5. We can choose what we focus on. The Poetic Principle. In this episode, we'll look at why it's a good time to take a fresh look at your organization, or even your life. How to make confirmation bias work for us. How we can free ourselves from past assumptions that have held us back, and much more. The Poetic Principle. We can choose what we study. If you get what you focus on, it makes sense to study success rather than failure. Maybe it's time to take a fresh look at your organization and even your life. The Poetic Principle in Appreciative Inquiry combines the idea that we get what we focus on with the reality that no one sees the whole of the truth about, for example, the organizations that we work in. Consequently, we can choose what we study or focus on about our organizations or our lives, and it makes more sense to focus on what's good and what's working, since this is more likely to lead in the directions we want things to go. The Poetic Principle follows on naturally from the Constructionist Principle. We have habits of seeing and habitual modes of conversation with others, which filter out some aspects of our experience and emphasize others. Over time, through the process that psychologists call confirmation bias, these mental filters become stronger, so that our beliefs and our habits of seeing become self-fulfilling prophecies that create their own supporting evidence. We know that our place of work is how we believe it to be because we notice and amplify evidence that supports that view and ignore or downplay evidence that contradicts it. Consequently, whatever we focus on grows in our attention and forms more and more of what we perceive as reality. If we focus only on problems and adversity, we will overlook or filter out things that will be useful or helpful to us. Our habits of seeing can change over time, especially if events come along that are big enough to break through our filters. For example, until the 2008 credit crunch, most people believed that economic expansion would continue indefinitely, or at least they acted as if it would. At the time of writing, most of us are beginning to wake up to the reality of climate change and beginning to think we ought to change our habits and policies so it doesn't get too much worse. Because our habits of seeing are subject to change and because different people have different habits of seeing, our social systems and organizations are like open books which are constantly being co-authored and reinterpreted. There is no one definitive viewpoint and therefore no monopoly on the truth about what the organization is, what it's like, and what it's there for. Each new person joining the organization is like a new reader, bringing their own perspectives. Each new eye that looks at the past, present, and future of the organization can find new sources of learning and inspiration. What are the implications? We can interpret the organization's narratives how we wish. We can choose what we study about the organization. Since companies and teams are social constructs, we are not condemned to repeat stale old narratives such as workplace stress, low engagement, management worker conflicts. Instead, we should find and focus on what we want more of. When we choose to inquire into experiences of the organization and its people at their best, we can uncover previously overlooked but valuable learnings. Questions for you. How can you look at your job, your team, or your organization differently? What useful things about your experience at work or your life in general have you previously overlooked? What is the best way to look at your experience in future in order to get the best outcome and to more fully become the person and collectively the team or organization that you want to be? Finally, if you were doubting the validity of you get what you focus on, think about how organizations that set targets will focus on getting those targets. and anything that isn't in the targets, no matter how important, gets forgotten about. If management sets quantitative targets and makes people's job depend on meeting them, they will likely meet the targets, even if they have to destroy the enterprise to do it. W. Edwards Deming quoted in Profits Beyond Measure by H. Thomas Johnson. In the next episode, the positive principle. Why positive emotion is essential for successful organizational change, and how to make that happen. Thanks for listening to the Positive Change Methods podcast with me, Andy Smith. You can find the show notes at positivechangemethods.com. Please like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you like this episode, leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or anywhere else you can review it. See you next time.